Once again, welcome everyone to the Cloud Networking Tech Panel. Tonight we'll be talking about networking technologies, cloud technologies, and discuss how these topics may affect IT professionals moving forward. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the question pane on your GoToWebinar panel. To reach out to us directly, please send a message to community@cbtnuggets.com, or if you're a member of the CBT Nuggets learner community, tag me on a post with @community-moderator. Now let's get started. Driving tonight's tech panel are AW expert and CBT Nuggets trainer Bart Castle, Cisco expert and CBT Nuggets trainer Jeff Kish, and Azure expert and CBT Nuggets learner community mentor Derek Smith. Bart Castle, take it away.
Well, thanks, Jack. I appreciate that intro, buddy. That's good stuff. Hey, friends, welcome to the tech panel tonight. Just wanted to get us out thinking about why we put this tech panel together. We've had a lot of success with our study groups here recently where we try to engage with our learners directly. And we enjoyed it so much. Derek's been leading up an Azure study group, and Jeff's been leading up a CCENT preparation study group as well. And we've had a great feedback from the learners. We want to keep that going, keep that question piece. I don't know about you, Derek. Have you ever run into a situation where you're watching a training video and you're like, man, I wish I could ask the trainer a question?
Oh, all the time.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
I wish I had Keith's number on speed dial like 5 years ago. That would have been great.
To the Barker phone, quickly.
Yeah, to the Barker phone. Yeah.
Exactly. So what we've done is we've spent a little while gathering questions from you guys, our registrants out there. We're taking questions live, and if you have anything, you can put them up in the questions panel there. We've already got questions coming in, so we appreciate that. We're going to cruise through them as we get into the evening. And as Jack told us, we're talking cloud networking. And indeed, for me, when I think about networking, a lot of it's about coming together across different arenas of technology to enable organizations. So we're going to touch on those themes tonight. Thought maybe we could just kind of introduce ourselves real quickly. If you haven't seen us on CBT Nuggets, you can check us out in the catalog. My name's Bart Castle. I am the AWS head trainer here at CBT Nuggets. I've been through a career in technology, across help desk and networking, got into voice over IP, ran a network administrative shop and software development operations, and then eventually got into instruction. Worked with a number of cloud migrations. I do security audits, and of course I make training nuggets here at CBT Nuggets, and consult with the general cloud computing world across lots of arenas. Part of what I love about cloud computing. With me tonight too, we have Jeff Kish. Jeff, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for anybody who's been participating in the CCENT study group that we've been heading up. So quick intro about me. I've been in IT for about 14 years, actually right out of college. I was lucky enough to get a job with a Cisco partner. So I've largely been doing consulting, which means, especially early on, right? A lot of installs. Man, I've done everything from hang access points in ceilings to installing wireless bridges on roofs to then later on, as I kind of got deeper into things, installing network cores, data center refreshes, eventually moved to a design role, got to do cloud integrations and things like that. Ended up along the way grabbing a couple of CCIEs. I got one in route switch and data center because my wife is amazing, and I would not have gotten those without some good family help. So currently at CBT, I'm making content on Cisco ACI, which is data center software-defined networking. We'll probably touch on that a little bit tonight. Also doing some data center CCT, which is, call it the new CCENT. It's like an old cert, but it's also the newest cert that's going to be under CCNA, as well as some A+. Actually, I got to record a nugget today on replacing a laptop screen. So here's my here's the result of that nugget. So yeah, good times.
It looks busted, Jeff. That looks busted.
Yeah, it'll be fine. We'll
good
didn't
stuff.
do a nugget. I'm putting it back together, fortunately. So
We'll see. You have to ship it to someone else and have them finish the reassemble.
That's a great idea. Yeah, what are you doing tomorrow, Bart?
Receiving your broken laptop. Thanks, Jeff.
I'll FedEx it.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to have you with us. Here as well, we have our learner community, Derek Smith. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your Azure background?
Yeah, I've been in IT, much like Jeff, for about the last 14 years. I was more fortunate to head into the enterprise world right out of college, doing a lot of help desks, junior network administration, things of that nature. Started with heavy Cisco background, but kind of once 2012 hit and public clouds were really starting to take off, I kind of started getting into this thing called Azure because it was the cool thing. And yeah, been doing consulting around cloud and Azure now for the last 4 years. It's changed so much, but it's a great time to be going to cloud. A lot of new role-based certifications, and I certainly hold quite a few of them myself within Azure. So yeah, great time to be in cloud.
I second that. I think it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, I think Jack said you knew AW. What's AW?
I'm an AW tech.
Root beer brand.
Yeah.
Well, after it's the new name after the outage last week. They just calling it AW.
That's true. They just dropped the S. Yeah.
I don't know if it got lost in translation. It's undetermined still.
Yeah, it's still being remedied by the DDoS.
Yep. But hey, they bring up a great point. Those guys, they got a lot of network planning to do still to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to address that. They totally fell flat on their faces, and Google hit the ground too. So
they were denying that it was related. Okay.
Oh, okay. AWS is like, come down with us, we're going down. They grabbed the biggest thing, the first chest they could grab on the way down. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Well, yeah, great to see you guys. And I think the big thing about cloud, of course, is it's an exciting area to be in. One of the things that we wanted to talk about here was some of the changes and some of the things that are happening in the industry. So we thought we'd maybe just do a quick round robin. I know for me, one of the biggest things that just happened recently in AWS is they added some VPC mirroring functionality. Pretty exciting, lets us mirror traffic across virtualized network interfaces. This is useful for security monitoring or for performance testing or for development purposes. Of course, useful for troubleshooting. So whether it be intrusion detection or threat prevention, VPC interface mirroring is available now. And they also have some interesting new certification news. I got their big data certs breaking in half. We've got a refresh on SysOps and on the solutions architects coming up soon too. And I'll be prepping all that content for us here at CBT Nuggets, and there'll be plenty of networking excitement to get into that. Additionally, reInvent's coming up here in November, so I'm excited to see what sort of networking announcements come out. I know there's been a lot of look at the continuing to evolve the WAN environment at AWS. So maybe with some Cisco news, we'll go back over to Jeff and see what he has to add to that one.
All right, yeah. I mean, the biggest news from a Cisco perspective right now, especially in our world, is Certpocalypse. What we call the certification apocalypse. It's coming February 24th. So the reason we've been doing a CCENT study group for those who maybe are pursuing some Cisco certs or maybe in the middle of it, or maybe we're thinking about it, is that all of Cisco's exams from CCENT, CCNA, CCNP, even the CCIE, all of them are being restructured as of February. So pay attention to that. If you have to do some research, again, if you're in the middle of that, make sure you have your ear to the floor on that. Unfortunately, if all you have is a CCENT come February 24th, you will effectively have nothing after that date because Cisco is retiring the CCENT officially. I know, it's so sad. It's been around. It's actually pretty short-lived, all things. I think it's been around since like 2012 or something. So maybe a little before that. But either way, what I tell everybody, there's still time. We've got like 100 days, something like that at this point, until February 24th. Plenty of time to go out if you've got your CCENT to go get that CCNA. And if you have the current CCNA, when it retires, Cisco will give you the new CCNA. So a lot to fight for. Actually, if you already have your CCNA, there is value in going out and passing one CCNP exam. You won't get the CCNP, but Cisco will give you credit towards the new one in some fashion. So be sure to explore that, investigate that, come out to one of our Cisco study groups if you want to ask more detailed questions, personalize the plan, or just come to the community and ask that, because we've got some great mentors in there who really can walk people through kind of advice there. So that's, it's not technology news, but I feel like it's really relevant in the Cisco space right now. So that's kind of what I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And thanks for the reminder. I know I personally do well with the deadline. That tends to help me bring some import to my studies. I don't know what you guys think, but yeah.
The best studying I got done in college was the night before.
I'm definitely that way. I work best if I'm doing something tomorrow. So yep. Deadlines help.
Yep.
Totally. Switch from the have to from the want to the have to. Yeah.
Makes a difference.
Awesome. Well, Derek, do you have any Azure news you might want to share with us? I know there's some interesting networking stuff that's popped up.
Yeah, Microsoft just recently announced a new feature called Private Link. So it's a way for you to connect to Azure Platform as a Service over the Microsoft network. So typically, if somebody wanted to connect to Azure SQL or Cosmos DB or some of the other PaaS services, it typically was over a public endpoint. And so that was kind of a touchy thing for a lot of security folks. So now with this Private Link, you can do it over the Microsoft backbone, all protected, all in-house, don't have to worry about it heading out to that dreaded public internet. So you can go over to your little security guys and say, hey, we're good, okay? So I think most people enjoy that conversation. And yeah, and another thing, Azure Bastion also got announced. So essentially Jumpbox as a service. So no longer do your sysadmins need to spin up their own VM, harden down that little machine and have it, sit there running, chewing up cost. Just go over, click the button, say, hey, I want to run Azure Bastion. I can RDP into my Windows servers. I can SSH into my Linux servers. It's platform as a service. Don't have to worry about any of the underlying infrastructure. It's hardened for you. And then finally, hey, Microsoft Ignites next week. I will be there. I hope a lot of you guys will be there too. If you want, drop me a line. I'm published in the attendee list. So if you guys want to meet up, whatever, just shoot me a message. I will respond. But excited to be in Orlando next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. And crossing my fingers for no hurricanes.
I hope you have a safe journey down there for sure, so you can bring us back some learning.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, no, we should be good.
Yeah, and that some of those things you were mentioning, that private backbone piece, that's a really big topic in the hybrid and the public cloud space, because you're talking about a very lucrative opportunity when articulated properly. I mean, you have a backbone network that you can take advantage of that you didn't build yourself, and that in its own is something that we look to our ISPs to provide. So it's nice to see that they're expanding that, and they're diversifying the type of virtual network services that are available over those backbones. AWS beefed up some of those offerings last year as well. I did see a question come in here about the cert. Is it getting restructured? The requirements for the Tesla change? Slightly, Antonio. Yes, it's still going to be centered around the well-architected framework. And we can talk about that a little bit more, especially if you hit us up in the learner community. Yeah, good question. Okay, so I thought maybe to kind of get us going in here, we could do another little poll to kind of get the group responding. So I appreciate you guys hanging out. We thought you could get to know us a little bit better, so we brought a couple of questions up for you here. We'll start out with this second one here. We'll go ahead and launch it. So we have 3 panelists here, and 2 of us live really, really close together. What do you think? Who do you think lives closest to one another here? And if you have any background on us in the social networks, you might have a little insight on this here. I'll give you a hint too. Jack is way out there on the West Coast.
Yeah, Jack lives in California, and he's close to being on fire. So, if you guys have like buckets of water, overnight them to Jack. He needs to water down like around his house.
Send water, please.
Totally.
Interestingly, we are on East Coast time, though.
What?
Despite the fact all 3 of us are on East Coast time.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
One of us not living anywhere near the other 2.
No.
This is also a super arbitrary poll here. There would be very little for you to base this off of. All right. We'll give everybody one more minute here. Looks like
I love
it's pretty even right now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Yeah, everybody's evenly split. They're like, we don't know. There's no distinct accents that are happening here.
No. I guess mine could be a little misleading because I'm originally from a different part of the country. So
if you're going by accents, well, so is Bart. So are you, right?
Yeah, I think we all might be a little bit.
Yeah, I'm from Maryland originally.
I think I'm about 20 miles away from where I was born and raised. So
okay, I'm 3,000 miles away from where I was originally born.
Okay, wow.
Nice. All right, well, there you go. It looked like most everybody thought Jeff and Derek lived pretty close by.
They got one of the answers right. I am one of the right answers. Unfortunately, it's Bart. So surprisingly enough, and I'll do a quick backstory on this. So I actually had a conversation with Bart at Trainingpalooza, And we started talking. He's like, oh yeah, I live up in the mountains of North Carolina. I was like, Asheville? And he's like, oh, totally. And I'm like, I go there all the time. So yes, Bart and I actually only live about an hour, hour and a half away from each other. So yeah, poor Jeff is over there by himself.
Yeah.
You're in Indiana, right? Is that?
Indiana is where I've been all my life, other than I moved to Wisconsin for a couple of years. But hey, guess what? Just a month ago, I moved like 30 minutes away, not even, and now I'm in Michigan. So for the first time in my life, I'm a Michigander, along with fellow trainer Sean Powers, who we are like 6 hours apart, despite the fact that we're in the same state. So
Ooh, it's a good name, the Michigander. What the fuck is that? Yeah. What is that?
Better than Indianian or really Hoosier, I guess.
I was gonna say, if you're in Indiana, you're known as a Hoosier. Indiana doesn't exist. Yeah.
No, I know. It's all Hoosier.
Yeah.
All right, let's do one more little quick poll here, and then we're gonna take a few questions from everybody. This was a broader question here. This one says, which trainer, and this is any CBT trainer, chose the name the Caffeinated Computer Person Guy? And we'll see if we can answer some questions here while you guys are checking out the poll there.
I answered somebody's private question about what public cloud will be the most valuable to learn in the next 3 to 5 years. And I said, I'm a little biased. It's Azure, so I'm sorry.
Well, that Jedi contract, that fat bass they just landed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was basing it off of. I was like, Microsoft just beat out AWS for a $10 billion contract, so they're going to be around for the next 3 to 5 years.
Wasn't that already awarded to Amazon at one point, and then they rescinded it?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. That was what started their some of their GovCloud and their C2S programs was that same awarding a couple of years back. So
here's a good one for you, Bart. Did you say the AWS Associate Certification is getting restructured? If so, what requirements? I'm trying to scroll, but I can't see.
Yeah, Antonio, like I was saying, the key thing for me is to always remember the well-architected framework. If you ever take any of my training stuff, you'll hear me going off about this well-architected framework. It's a white paper that you can find online. It is absolutely the holy grail of any AWS certification. So they're going to continue to make that the crux of it. But they are restructuring it, and they'll add a few new additional services. And interestingly enough, a lot of the new stuff, they're networking services, things that have been added since the last issuing of the test. Okay, so let's take a look at the results here.
Chuck
they figured it out.
Big winner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Caffeine.
Mr. Coffee himself.
I want to know how everyone knows I'm on decaf. Like, what gave that away?
Oh no!
Did I not off a second ago and nobody told me?
I don't know. Hey, Bart got a few votes, so they think Bart's sipping a little caffeine.
Learning intensifies.
Buggy-eyed, excitement level going on over there.
Oh man! All right,
we've got a couple questions in the question pane. Can I read them off real quick?
Yeah, read them away.
Cool. We got. Will the Azure Admin Cert still require a recertify after 2 years?
Yes. So as of right now, and they haven't announced any plans to change it. So any Azure role-based certification you achieve, whether it be admin, security, AI, data, DevOps, solution architect, 2 years, got to recertify. After I get back from Ignite, they may change that, but no. I think the 2 years, Bart can probably back me up on this one. Cloud changes so much, so yeah, every 2 years is probably the extent, because you got to keep on your toes with what's new.
I was going to ask you too, Derek, do they do betas? Is there an Azure Beta piece that rolls out first that people can get involved in?
Absolutely, yeah. So Microsoft always starts a beta program for any of its new exams. So if you get invited to that, please take advantage of it. It's free. And if you pass, you pass. Like, that's good for the real exam. So if you get that opportunity, take it up. And if you're at Ignite next week, take an exam. It's free. They are literally paying you $165 awesome. To go take a test. Normally in the past, it's only been 50% off. This year, it's 100% free. So if you are there,
definitely take advantage.
I don't care where you guys are at. If you're kind of on the fence about taking it, sign up and take it. It's literally free.
I'll be in your carry-on bag there. Just
That's, hey, you know, I've got 3 large suitcases out in the hallway. I'll stuff you in one.
that's awesome.
All right,
It's the same deal with
question.
the AWS 2 years. It's the same idea there.
Imagine you carrying a suitcase down the airport and there's, you know, Bart's hat sitting on one of them.
Yeah.
That's it. Totally. Okay, so I saw another one here. Murad was asking, what about Cisco or cloud? Who's going to be running it? Should I pick between the two? Jeff, do you want to weigh in on that? I know we had some history on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, my background is primarily, you know, as I mentioned earlier, the Cisco side of things, and yet, you know, participate in a lot of cloud integration conversations. I will tell you right away. Somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, what's going to happen to on-premise data centers? You know, is cloud going to take it over?" And it's what everybody's been asking for 5 years. But the last statistics that I saw, even though we know cloud's on the uptick, and because cloud's so on the uptick, we all assume that private data centers are on the down. No, private data center spend is increasing too. People are spending more on data centers this time this year, than they did this time last year. So what's the deal with that? Well, generally speaking, all of our data and all of our, you know, applications, everybody's still growing. So we assume that because one is going up, the other one's going down. That's just not true. It's, you know, rising tide raises all ships. So private data center is still going strong. Long story short of it, my opinion, some applications belong in the cloud, some applications belong on premise. And that's a different conversation for every organization. Sometimes it'll be data sovereignty that governs it. Sometimes it'll be security. Sometimes it'll be convenience, accessibility. There's 10 to 20 different factors that you have to take into account when you're looking at an individual application. So do we need, I mean, is cloud a good place for your applications? Absolutely. Is it the right fit for all of your applications? Very rarely. And you'll pay a whole lot of money if you move your entire data center into the cloud. So whether it's 90% in the cloud, 10% on premise, or 90% on prem and 10% in the cloud, whatever it looks like, you need to make sure that you have an environment that is architected to take advantage of both solutions as best you can. So Derek and Bart, what do you have to say on that from the cloud side?
I couldn't agree more. You know, cloud is rising, but you have to remember data centers help facilitate connectivity into the cloud. Think of like Equinix and some of the other big data centers. Those are ways you can connect into the Microsoft cloud. So they're not going anywhere. And Jeff's absolutely right. I come into client environments, assess what they've got. Some stuff can go up to the cloud. That's great. Other stuff, you know, you kind of look at them and like, sorry, it's got to stay because it just isn't feasible, or, you know, there's some type of regulation or sovereignty rule that, you know, prevents it from being up there, and that's fine. You know, hybrid cloud is I think the probably the more trendy thing. You rarely see somebody all in public cloud or all on a data center. Hybrid is really kind of where I think 80 to 90% of organizations are going to end up living.
Yeah, and something to mention too is when we say hybrid first, typically it starts with the software as a service diversification because they're low-hanging fruit. It doesn't require a network clip. It doesn't require a network extension for a lot of the big, easy software as a service stuff that's available out there. Those would be the gateway. But once you get into real enterprise applications that have any sort of delivery expectations, well, then you have to architect it properly. You can't just jump in shadow IT style and take on a software solution. So I think a lot of people, most of us that are in the cloud industry, feel like networking is going to continue to be a critical skill that is well worth your time, that will be running in providers' networks, running in customers' networks, and running everywhere in between for the foreseeable future. So yeah, absolutely. And I think Cisco will continue to be at the forefront of that. You see their DevNet push very much leading the automation world, again, in an important way. Automation is one of the big 3 technologies I always talk about in cloud: automation, networking, and virtualization. And Cisco is touching on all of those tools. They've evolved right along with it. And it's the same story with Microsoft. So I don't see anything just disappearing. I see it evolving further and needing to have this additional terminology, additional feathers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One thing I was going to ask Jeff, we had a question in a previous one about virtual appliances or the hybrid cloud piece using, say, like a Cisco appliance that's running in AWS or running in Azure. What do you think about using an appliance like that? Does it make sense? Is it's still trainable? It's still got the software pieces to it. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's usually not a technical conversation. I mean, do you need a virtual Cisco router running in the Amazon cloud in order to terminate a VPN to your Cisco router back home? No, you don't need that. You can do it to Amazon's default services. You can do it to a number of different, but at the same time, the question is always who's managing this? When virtualization really hit in the data center 10 years ago, we had for the first time, we had this major problem because now we have servers with networking inside the servers. And so the networking team has always been like, hey, hands off the switches. The server team's like, I don't want to touch your switches. But now all of a sudden, every single server has a switch in it, maybe 2 switches, maybe 5. And so, when it was physical, like the IBM Blade Center, we had this oh, you can swap the IBM modules out with Cisco modules, and that's great. But then you have this virtual world. And Cisco, they had this Nexus 1000V thing. It was kind of cool. It could kind of go in and be a Cisco switch in a VMware space. But at the end of the day, really, you're going to have virtual networking inside of there, and you had to figure out who was going to manage it. And I view cloud as kind of the same situation. Who is managing it? If your server admins are going to manage the cloud networking, then it doesn't matter. But if you have Cisco certified network technicians who are going to be managing this for you, by all means, it's worth every dollar to put a Cisco CSRV or whatever product it's going to be inside the Amazon cloud, and then VPN to that, because it's all about supportability at that point. How can your team best support the business to keep the business online, to facilitate communications? Because I guarantee you, the Cisco people, they're going to be able. I mean, their fingers are going to be flying on that virtual router, and they're going to be able to figure things out so fast compared to if they're not, if it's a different product. So, part of me doesn't like the fact that so far we skirted around every question like, well, it just sort of depends. But I mean, the reality is that there's not going to be a question that comes in probably for the most part. It's like, well, which one do I do? Every single time it's this, right? You have to take all of these decision-making criteria into account and decide what does work best for your environment. So that's where consultants can come in handy if you do need to ask some questions. But yeah.
No magic bullet.
Sadly, no.
Oh.
What if I get my guitar out and play a song? Will it show up then?
So Tristan responded back to me when he asked what cloud will be more valuable in 3 to 5 years. And I was like, I'm a little biased on Azure. He's like, well, what about Google? I'll answer it the same way as Jeff. Look, in 3 to 5 years, all 3 clouds are still going to be there. Ultimately, it's about the direction you want to take your career and where you see the market trending. Is Google coming up? Yes. Is their acquisition of Nutanix huge news? Absolutely. And that gives them a major foothold into the enterprise space. So by no means should you shun Google away and only do Azure, only do AWS. I mean, really, it's any one of the 3 is a good bucket to be in. Just, what's the best fit for you, and where is your company or, maybe a MSP that you work for, where are they kind of more focused in, and align yourself with that. I mean, you're not going to shorten yourself from a skill perspective if you are, like myself, heavily certified in Azure, or like Bart, who's heavily certified in AWS. If you have all 6 Google certs, you're worth a lot, and that's by no means a bad thing. So, absolutely, if Google's a fit for you, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that one. I saw them asking about IBM Cloud and a couple other ones. I still feel like it's a lot of the same stories that we've been mentioning here. If you're going to get into cloud computing, you're going to find yourself going across patterns instead of just thinking about being certified in a service. One thing that I will point out in this discussion is that of the 3 big American vendors, because that's the way we should characterize them, neither Google or AWS have what's called horizontal integration. Diagonal integration. So when you think of Microsoft, you're talking about people who have some of the deepest, longest running install base that's out there. And so they're going to continue using Microsoft in some way for the foreseeable future. AWS and Google don't have that going for them in the same ways. You have new companies like, like Pinterest or Redbubble or Soup du Jour, okay, all these different AWS startups that are great, and now they're in the AWS group, But when you think about big businesses, these are guys that have been running Exchange and SQL and Dynamics and all these like Microsoft products for years. They're going to continue using those products. They're going to evolve them into cloud adjacent versions of them, and then maybe hybrid versions of them. And so I think Microsoft is one of the only ones that has that kind of trend happening for them. And so I do generally feel safe saying you should go with Azure, make that your gateway if you're in a Microsoft shop, if you've got your MSCDA, or if you've got your engineering certifications. Those are going to be great. They're going to continue to be valuable for all the reasons that Jeff and Derek and I were kind of mentioning there. I was going to answer real quick one thing about IBM. IBM kind of dropped the ball on their public service offerings, but they're still a big player in what you might call private cloud. Oh, there it is, Jeff.
What?
So when we say private cloud, I just wanted to jump in here because somebody asked a separate question about private cloud.
Oh, came in. Okay.
A great example. Oh, yeah. Well, they didn't ask specifically about it, but IBM brings it up. IBM is a great solution for private clouds, but this, of course, brings up the question of what is a private cloud, and there's been a lot of discussion about that over the years. My personal take on it is that when you talk about privacy, it's a level of exclusivity. It's not 100% one way or another. It's like kind of a spectrum. Just like a bank, you have control over certain things and you share control, just like Jeff was saying a minute ago. But with private clouds, typically the problem is people assume that what they mean is it's running in-house, it's running in my network. And that's not 100% accurate. I don't know what you guys think about that, Jeff. What might you add to the private cloud? We've heard this term. I have problems with it.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I think that people assume that private cloud is synonymous with my on-premise hardware. And so we'll say, oh yeah, my private cloud, and I'm talking about the 3 servers that I have tied into a network switch in the back. And, you know, cloud is not hardware. Cloud is not software. Cloud is a service that delivers value. And so, you know, NIST has a great set of parameters for what defines a cloud service. And there's 5 of them. And Bart, you can probably rattle them off better than I can. I know like scalability, elasticity,
network
ubiquitous network access.
Network accessibility, yeah.
Shared resources.
Shared resources.
Yeah, and I think cost model, maybe?
Metered usage.
Metered use, that's it. Yes. So if we have those, I'm sorry, maybe I should start. Realistically, we don't have those in our data centers. Okay, there's not a lot of data centers today outside of large enterprise data centers that are fully embracing what a private cloud means. There are software packages, Cisco has them, VMware has them. There are plenty of other packages that will turn your hardware into a private cloud. What that means is developers need a virtual machine. What are they doing? Well, if you know, one of the reasons why cloud is so great is because I don't have to call IT. I can just go point out, swipe my credit card, so to speak, and boom, I've got a virtual machine running in Amazon. I can do that in my private data center. I can let my developers spin up as many virtual machines as they want. I can track their usage. I can do cost model, like, you know, chargeback, call it, to turn IT into not a cost drain, but a cost center within, you know, a cost, you know, it shows, you know, a little bit more who's using the money, because IT is always the bad guy, right? I'm always going in and saying, I need more money for memory. I know we just upgraded last year, and I said it the last 3 years. Well, who's the bad guy here? Well, it's finance or legal. They bought an application nobody saw coming, threw 50 virtual machines into our data center, or 5, who cares how many, and all of a sudden I'm out of memory again. And yet today it's like, well, IT is always the bad guy. IT is always asking for more money. So it's not about charging the finance department. It's about who's spending what, tracking that. And hey, now IT can go with finance and say, hey, you know, that application you deployed, you're gonna have to pay for a memory upgrade now because of that. And anyways, all that to say, private cloud, when you say private cloud, make sure you think about those 5 definitions of what NIST is, or how NIST defines it. And then from there, you can ask yourself, does my private data center, does my data center provide these services? And if it does, it's a private cloud. If it's not, it's just hardware.
I remember I was doing a gig for the Department of Homeland Security. I was totally up there training away and talking to their people who had been voluntold to come to training, and they're like, we need a cloud, Bart. We need a cloud. And I was like, all right, well, I see you guys have a massive Oracle VM infrastructure. You've got token authentication. You've got You've got quality of service. You've got differentiated service tiers. You've got check. What are you guys asking for? And they're like, we want a product catalog. And I was like, oh, so that's it. In the end, it was all about having a point and click user interface. That was the thing that their bosses, $8 million later, were like, this isn't a cloud. It doesn't look like Amazon. It doesn't look like Azure. I can't click on things. So it's a simple thing, but that's a big visible part of it. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Huge.
Oh man, okay. So I thought I'd maybe take a look at some of our other older questions people had sent in from registration here.
Yeah.
If you guys see any good ones you want to grab.
Yeah. I've been grabbing the questions flying in, so if you've seen me respond to you, I am monitoring to answer your questions, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for submitting the questions too. I appreciate everybody participating there. This one keeps coming up. How do I get started in cloud networking, or maybe just cloud? I was going to touch on that. I mentioned 3 technologies: networking, automation, and virtualization. Now, I just want to say for a sec, automation, I'm talking about different layers. It could be programmability, it could be scripting, it could be creating catalogs like Bart was just describing there a minute ago. The whole idea behind it is that you're creating something that can be done with minimal effort and is highly reproducible. So that concept is hugely translatory. It goes across all of the different areas. The other one was virtualization, and I don't mean just running VMs. I'm talking about the concept of abstraction. Presents a logical piece that hides whatever else is behind it. It's the Wizard of Oz model. So when you look at getting into cloud and you're thinking networking and you're wondering what else is there, these are the other 2 major technology camps that I encourage people to look at when they get into cloud computing, because you're going to see it. And when we say cloud, we're talking about the evolution of modern networks and infrastructure. So these, even if you're running in-house, you're still going to see those trends. You're still going to see these 3 technologies play a big role in your data center. So I was trying to encourage people to look at that. CompTIA's got great certs to get you started in all of those. Net Plus, A Plus, Security Plus, if you want to get into the security arena. And the big value for me is that they're not vendor specific. So I don't have to invest in the concern of choosing the wrong path. I can bring up my entire tide, like Jeff was saying earlier, and then jump in where I want to specialize. And that's often a great way to go. Be a generalist until you're sure that there's an appeal. I think that's a good way to kind of look at it there.
You know, Bart and Derek, just a thought here. I mean, again, speaking from the Cisco side, I can tell you that if you go get a CCNA, for example, and you apply for a job that has a Juniper network or an HP network, that CCNA means a lot. Even though it has Cisco in it, it tells me that you know a lot about networking. You might not know Juniper per se, but it's all the same stuff under the hood. Would you say that, I mean, if somebody went and got an Amazon certification and their next big opportunity career-wise looks like it's more with Azure, I mean, does that Amazon cert still help in that capacity in the same way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, all the time, I'll tell you, when you're looking for a cloud architect or a cloud engineer, I mean, every job line says experience in AWS, Google, or Azure. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's comma. It's all of them. If you know enough about one of the big 3, it's translatable, and the vendors will tell you that. I don't know how many times I've gone into the AWS architecture website, and Bart, sorry, I don't remember the name of it, but I've looked into there to do some research. I've looked into the Azure architecture to do some research, and it literally, there are bullet points that say, coming from Azure, this is how you learn AWS. Coming from AWS, this is how you learn Azure. So they understand that people are coming from elsewhere and they need to pick up things quick, and they help you out with that. So yeah,
I agree as well. I was going to mention too, there's one that I don't hear people talk about that much, and I was an instructor for them for years. It's the Cloud Credential Council. They offer a series of professional non-vendor specific cloud certifications. And so I was a big fan of those, and they have one like for cloud service management, cloud administrator, cloud architect, cloud developer, and they're really pretty well put together if you find yourself a good trainer to work on them. Anyways, I'll just put those out there as well because it's a nice generic non-vendor specific cert that brings those kind of skills without being specifically in one camp or another.
Yeah, I think we sometimes lock ourselves into this belief that, oh man, if I go get that cert, it's going to lock me out of, I mean, that's the sense that I get, not just within cloud, but within the networking side as well. And it's like, no, don't be afraid to push down. Look at what you have access to. If you happen to have access to Amazon, you'd probably want to go with Amazon. If your company has both, and it's truly a toss-up, just pick one. Better to have one than to spend too much time and maybe even spreading yourself too thin on the generic certs. Those are always good as a stepping stone to get to the real certs, call them, and get those Amazon or Microsoft or Google, because again, it's a step in the right direction and it's not going to lock you out of a job. I don't think we need to panic about that. That's the point I think I wanted to make.
I have a good question for you, Jeff. This is coming in from Morad. I have my CCNA from February 2018, and I could not apply for a network entry level job because I do not have experience. What would you suggest?
Okay. That is, that's kind of a, it's probably an outside, like I wouldn't consider that to be a very common situation. However, at the same time, I would certainly be, I don't know the whole story. I don't know what kind of experience you have. I can tell you that if you're a student and you're coming out of college with a CCNA, okay, so I worked for a Cisco consultant for a number of years. I looked at resumes, and I can tell you that a CCNA coming out of college is worth a whole lot less than a CCNA who has 5 years of experience, because that tells me, you ever hear the phrase paper tiger? Everybody, a lot of people have probably heard that. Paper tiger is somebody who, maybe memorizes test question answers, whatever, and I just go and, like me, if I'm a Cisco guy and I'm like, ooh, those Amazon certs look really great, and I go and I download as many of Bart's videos and I watch all these videos and I just go and I take and because Bart's such a good instructor, I pass the test. And it's like, well, okay, I've got an Amazon cert, but how much experience do I have managing an Amazon cloud? Well, 0. So it's not that, I'm gonna trip over myself here a little bit, because you got to be careful. Going after certs is always a good thing, but at the same time, make sure that you have the experience to back that cert up. If you get your CCNA in college and within 6 months you have your CCNP, you might find that companies are unwilling to hire you, because we're going to pay a lot. We got to pay a lot of money to have you come in, and you've never had a job before, or maybe you've never been a network person before. So I always tell people to crawl into certifications if you don't have a lot of experience. If you're fresh out of college, go after, again, the A+ that Bart mentioned, the Network Plus, the CCENT from Cisco, which is, as I mentioned, retiring, so it kind of goes away. But they have the CCT program. Some of these entry-level certs don't scare won't scare anybody away. I'm surprised to hear CCNA does as well, did for you, and I'm sorry that you experienced that, because CCNAs, for the most, yes, they're higher up, but it's not like you have CCIE with no experience. So that's why I feel like it's probably not a common response. But again, I can tell you as a guy who's had to make hiring decisions, you got to be careful with over-certifying yourself, and understand that once you do certify yourself, that you will be overqualified for certain job opportunities. So just not to scare anybody away, but make sure, long story short, it's a very long story made longer now. Make sure your cert level matches your experience. You shouldn't be going after a cert if you can't say that I've also had experience, unless it's an entry-level cert, because that's how we get in the door.
But that knowledge passes on to cloud networking, any cert level. So if you don't have the experience to back it up, it's going to show, not only from a networking perspective, but even from a cloud perspective. If I were to roll in today and been like, oh yeah, I'm an AWS solution architect professional, I'd look like an idiot. Like I'm not even remotely at that level. But because Bart's so great at teaching, hey, I passed the cert.
I have the same problem. I passed the cert because of Bart's.
I know. So,
I will say this: I didn't really answer the question, because it doesn't help you now to be like, okay, I can't get a job because I have a CCNA. You can leave it off your resume. You can try to apply for an entry-level job without it. But I will say, as much as anything, just keep applying, because you will eventually find a good job opportunity. If you had one or two who passed you up because of that, trust, if it's a competitive environment, it will be hard to get noticed. But just keep on hammering, keep on going, and make the most of whatever opportunity you're in now. And don't be afraid to go after some parallel entry-level certifications to kind of show that you're motivated. And the good news is, in 6 months later, you'll have 6 more months of experience. So, that experience does add up over time.
Wow, those are great answers, guys. Yeah, it's the classic struggle of certification versus working knowledge.
Yeah.
Um, let's take a quick breather for a sec here. I got a funny little story here. Have you ever crashed a network or accidentally brought down a production system? I'm going to run this poll for a sec here. Let's hear from you guys. I'm personally number 3. I'll never tell. No,
I'm a big
I
fat
will
yes.
happily, I was going to say, I'm a big fat yes. I'll happily admit that.
Those
Not
are
to
the
crash,
battle scars.
not to crash the network, but definitely I have brought down a production system. That has happened.
When you say
Oh, man.
crash the network, what if you just like disabled routing on the core switch? I mean, is that crashing the network?
Much in the same way that rolling into a party and slapping the drink out of someone's hand does, yes. No.
Okay. All right. Then yeah, then I've crashed the network.
And this is just a confidence builder, right? I mean, it totally happens. Often,
is it crashing the network if you watch somebody plug a network cable into one port and then plug it into the port right next to it, causing loops?
I wasn't looping. I was testing the spanning bridge.
Yeah, and you were just sitting back there going, will spanning tree kick in?
I mean, is it complicit? Like, you know, you allowed it
Yeah.
even though you didn't do it? I don't know.
Oh, well, it looks like most of our viewers share that. They have had a situation in which they have heard the sad trombone at work.
And I'm sorry, that 41% who say no, I'm calling a little BS on that, just a little bit.
It just means you don't have enough experience yet. So you know, eventually you'll get enough experience that you can talk about how you crash the network.
It's that added phrase, you know, for like motorcycle riders. It's those who have gone down or those who will go down. Like it's gonna happen. You just never know when.
Yeah.
I found myself bitten by I was run lab and production environments a lot in dual mode. And so the particular time I was in a system, I had a SSH window, this is the lab, this is some production.
Ooh,
I went in the wrong one and
mixed up.
powered off, just
change the color of that text or something.
Yeah.
Man, it's totally
different windows, Bart, different windows.
Man, it was bad. So it just turned it right off in the middle of the day. Nothing broken, just shut down completely. Good stuff. Oh man. I saw a question from Kelvin here. So how do you get basic experience to get in the door, especially for AWS Associate? So I always encourage people to take advantage of the free tier. I know I just got done using up some Azure credits. I really like the Azure free trial as well. Of course, the biggest problem is you sign up for the account. That's the easy part. Then you need to come up with some use cases and some things to kind of try out. If you're like anybody like some of our learners, then they'll go in there and they'll break stuff and they'll have fun with it. But sometimes you need some guidance. I personally dip into a lot of AWS blog articles. The blog constantly brings in guest people to write, and they'll just walk through things, and you can try to rebuild it yourself. Some of them are cheaper. They'll usually tell you stuff like that. So I always try to encourage to not only get the free account, but find yourself some actual tutorials that you can kind of walk your way through. Specifically, if you take a look in there, AWS has a resource called Quick Labs. Okay, and I encourage you to check that one out. That's the resource that I used for doing a lot of preparation. They've got scenarios and examples and working content, so you can kind of use that one. Jeff, Derek, you guys have anything to add on maybe getting started or getting some experience with like the free tier?
Yeah, I mean, certainly from an Azure side, you can sign up for a free subscription. Microsoft has a cool site called Microsoft Learn, stop.microsoft.com/learn. Completely free, nothing but modules on Azure, Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365, Power BI, a whole suite of stuff. They're free, they're in contained environments, so you can they'll launch you into a cloud. They'll walk you through how to do, you know, setting up a virtual network, setting up a SQL cluster, setting up a web app, you know, all sorts of stuff. And it's isolated, it's free, won't break anything. So yeah, go have at it.
Love it. Yeah, Kelvin was saying my account got suspended for no reason. You know, Kelvin, one thing to keep in mind is that those AWS, the root account, it's tied to your actual Amazon.com account, like the billing piece in the background. So you might have something weird going on there. If worse comes to worse, I would just go through the registration process and create a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that should get you back on track.
You can make them with Gmail email addresses. I know I've had a couple of those, so you don't have to have it like tied to a corporate account.
Totally. Jeff, I know this was cloud kind of centric, but do you have any like resources to like starting out dev resources for Cisco folks?
You know, a great one, it's not really networking related per se, but you mentioned earlier Cisco DevNet. You know, what that is, for those who don't know, is Cisco is 100% invested into software-defined networking and programmability within networking. And that sounds very fancy. Essentially what it means is learning how to do large repeatable tasks one time and push that out to the whole network. And so, you know, don't go, you got to put a new VLAN on every single switch in your network. Every single time you touch a switch, there's risk there and it takes time. And script that, learn how to use certain tools, you know, to push that out. And it's sometimes even in an automated fashion, like with regularity for those types of changes. So that is all tied to, again, what we call the DevNet. And that URL is developer.cisco.com. They have so many free resources. And if you go there, developer.cisco.com, look at the top. There's a lot to explore, but if you can find your way to learning tracks, that's where I usually direct people. There's a ton of them. They're data center focused ones. If you happen to be on collaboration side, which is like WebEx and phones and such, they've got a lot of resources there. Use Cisco UCS, ACI, and DNA, of course, which is a huge one for Cisco, the new way of doing routing and switching. Lots of free resources, lots of sandbox environments, which are really fun. Log you into a virtual Cisco space. So again, already said twice, but I'll say it again, developer.cisco.com. Look for those learning tracks.
Oh, that's great, Jeff. Thanks for sharing, buddy.
Yeah.
I know I constantly hear from people on Twitter about, you know, how to get started and some resources they're using and a lot of emulators and things like that. And it kind of got me thinking, there's a question on here about Linux, and I wanted to just, it says, is it beneficial for an IT engineer to learn Linux? If it is, then why? Well, one of the things you see right away is you start trying to bring up emulators and virtual environments is you're going to run into, invariably, of course, command line. So first of all, I need to be comfortable with command line, but you're going to run into things like file system permissions, and you're going to run into the Linux file system. You're going to run into the permission schemes that they use. You're going to run into kernel manipulations, things like that. And so more Linux experience you have, I think it's going to go a long way. You'd be surprised the places that Linux conventions pop up cross technologies. So I always try to, being a generalist myself, I've always gone back to the Linux skills as something I underestimated when I first learned, because since then I've put them to immeasurable use across a ton of different areas. And I was going to ask Derek too, what you thought about that when being in Azure. We know there's a lot of Linux VMs running out there, so you don't want to think this is, I'm a Microsoft, I don't need to know it. I don't know if that's
that. Yeah, that couldn't be more false. There's more Linux running on Azure than there is Windows. I think we've seen a shift now in the IT world where you know, everybody has really embraced Linux. Microsoft has embraced Linux. They're part of the Linux Foundation. And so there are Linux shells running in Windows Server and Microsoft, you know, and Windows 10 and other places. So it is a skill now that is, I think, a must-have from a IT perspective, regardless of whether you focus on networking, cloud, development, you name it. And you know, a learner just popped in a question, you know, Python or PowerShell, both. They're both are now, I think, at a point where they're indispensable. PowerShell is cross-platform. It works in Linux, it works in Windows, it works in Mac OS, like
portable language.
Yeah, it's become portable. So pick one, run with it, do both. I mean, you're not hurting yourself.
I will say this though. You know, because like if I had to start, I'm not going to go try to learn both. So if you're trying, generally speaking, it's not a rule of thumb, but generally speaking, I will say network automation is favoring Python right now. If you're going to be doing Azure stuff, probably PowerShell. Bart, I don't know Amazon if it really matters one way or the other, but I mean there are, you know, depending on what you need to learn or how it would best apply.
I think it would depend on
start
what workloads you're running in AWS, whether you choose Python or PowerShell. I agree with you, Jeff. Python would probably be a little bit higher than PowerShell, just because, at least from a infrastructure as code perspective, PowerShell is really geared in the Microsoft world, whereas Python is going to be multi-cloud. You're going to see that in Chef and Ansible and Terraform and those type of products. So Python is going to have a much broader applicability to cloud and networking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize quite how old Python is. It is one of the older actively utilized languages in the market right now. So we say it's new and all, but it's really new to different industries. As a language, it's been around for quite a while, which is a good thing because that means that it's been over many iterations and it has a great skill base that's out there in the market. So when you choose to learn Python or PowerShell, you're also getting into, or when you do this, make sure that you dig into the community side of it, because that is a really big part of using these environments. Find the resource places where you're finding the scriptlets or participating in the source code arguments and discussions that are happening online. That's going to be a great way to not only learn it, but immerse yourself in it as well. But I would go even a little higher and just say that people talk about, is scripting software development? And I think very strongly it is. And I think in general that you can't go wrong learning any scripting practice, because really you're talking about the idea of taking text arguments, parsing them, piping them, passing them. Those concepts work across Python, PowerShell, Bash. You go into DOS, a lot of that stuff is still similar. So I encourage people to try to consider those more rudimentary parts of scripting. But then I would probably get in with Python. AWS, if you're curious, they have a lot of libraries for their command line kits, and they have developer toolkits. So those are even kind of an entire separate avenue of how you might administer things if you want to write an application that does it for you. And Jeff mentioned earlier, application-centric infrastructure. A large portion of what network teams do nowadays is focused around facilitating environments for network-aware applications. And that changes the type of role that we have. We're not just doing the work, we're making interfaces available that allow the systems to talk to them. So in these ways, that's a different type of provisioning than what many network engineers have ever done. And that's a big part of how the cloud is affecting networking, the role of an API or the notion of a developer's kit. Yeah, many of you guys are asking about sharing. We are recording. We're going to share this out to the group. Yep, we'll make some stuff available. And I believe there's talk of a podcast. So hang tight and we'll get you some details on that. My goodness, friends, it's 9 p.m. already.
I was going to say, we're already at time. I feel like we could keep going.
Oh, dude, I had so many polls here we didn't do. All right, let's do a quick poll and then we'll try and wrap up here. Which of our panelists is regularly competing in Smash Bros tournaments?
Ooh.
Here we go. Put your best Smash Bros face on.
I know exactly who this is. I won't. Yeah.
Is it because you regularly compete against Bart in the finals for Super Smash Bros?
Yeah, I mean, we live so close together. I mean, anytime we go in for a tournament, it's like, oh, there's that guy in the hat again.
There he is.
He's probably going to sit right in front of me. Well, it's funny. Yeah, 40% voting in there. Thanks, friends. We got quite a few folks out there still, 25 folks joining us. Great to see everybody hanging to the end. Okay, cool. You guys, Jeff, you got it right.
We gave it away. It's Jeff.
He's our man right there, Jeff Kish. Jeff, have you got any notable titles that you would share?
Only self-declared, but I was the 2004 regional Midwest Super Smash Brothers Melee champion. So, heck yeah, but the great part is now, because that was my past, right? I used to compete in Smash tournaments all the time, but now my kids are old enough. It's like, hey, wait a second, I can take them to tournaments. So take them to weekly tournaments here, and they're doing well. But good old dad actually gets some action in there, and can I can still beat them. We'll see how long that lasts.
Not long.
Yeah. No, it's fast.
Oh, I love it. And Jeff and Derek, do you guys have any closing thoughts for the group here? Maybe on some inspiration or just to kind of wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, just keep grinding. Like Jeff mentioned, February Cert Apocalypse is coming. So, if you guys are trying to get in that last cert, just keep at it. Yes, there's a deadline, and I know holidays are coming up and it might seem scary, but put your nose to the grind and get after it. And if you,
Yeah.
For a couple of you guys who are like, hey, I really want to get into cloud, go, don't necessarily have to pick up a credit card, but, like Bart said, Quick Labs, Microsoft Learn, just hit the website and just start picking modules and seeing what interests you. Hey, if you like it, you like it. If that maybe isn't your fancy, there's still plenty of other tutorials or modules that, are out there, and give them all a try and see what sticks.
Experiment.
Yeah.
I will I'll use my my last moments to really put, it ties to the conversation earlier. There are a ton of free resources. I know that we're all tied to CBT Nuggets, and hey, if we've got a ton of awesome content that for those who are looking for free resources, join the learner community. Jack does a great job on that side. I tell you what, there are so many good mentors in there. I try to go in and provide value on the Cisco side, and I can't. Because by the time I get in there, anybody who's asked a question in the last like 30 minutes, there's like 5 answers already, and just phenomenal people. Everybody just looking out for each other there, trying to help each other get push forward in the certification. It's really nice to have people behind you pushing, and so get engaged in the learner community. Shameless plug on all 3 parts really. Again, Derek is leading a great Azure Study Cloud study group. Join that. If you're interested at all in Azure, join that. Bart, doing the same thing on Amazon. I'm doing the same thing with Cisco. We just finished CCENT, and we're rolling right into CCNA. In fact, I'm going to be moving, I did want to say this too, I'm going to be moving the platform off of GoToWebinar. We're going to be taking it, of all places, to Twitch. So the gamer in me, I suppose maybe, for those who don't know, Twitch is a live streaming platform. The reason we're doing that is because, honestly, as much as the GoToWebinar has some great tools, but I really want, people to be able to actively communicate and have it be a lot more interactive. So I think it'll be more interactive that way. Go to twitch.tv/ this is going to sound weird. It's Kish Squared, because I had this channel before we really turned it professional. So KISHSQUARED, it's spelled out, Kish Squared. So be sure to go check that out. Again, Cloud, Derek and Bart, so many free resources out there, helps you get started in the industry, helps you take a step forward, and every step forward is going to mean a lot in the long run.
I love it. Well, Derek and Jeff, thank you guys so much. I would second everything they said about building a community, being a part of the community that we're building here, or building one on your own. Study groups can be started with your peers in your local areas as well. It's all about getting excited, and I think oftentimes it can take the enthusiasm of someone else being psyched about something that you're geeking out on to get you over the finish line. So be stronger together. Reach out to us. We are really available if you find us online. I'm at CloudBart, Kish Squared on Twitter. You can find Derek Smith on LinkedIn there and Instagram as well. So please hit us up, and we would love to hear about it. Additionally, we're going to be sending out some follow-up questions that people had written in earlier, so keep an eye on your inbox. As well as that, if you guys have more questions for down the road, CBTN, #CBTN Tech Panel, you can keep submitting those, and we'll be putting together another tech panel here in the future with the immeasurable help of Mr. Jack Walker. So I appreciate everybody hanging out tonight. I'm going to let Jack sign us off here, and I hope to see you guys out there in the cloud, the networking world. Stay strong and keep learning.